Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This time around, hopefully we'll have just a little bit more to do than work on bases. Okay, so I do actually know we're going to do a little bit more than work on a base, but we are going to spend the first chunk of this just rounding out the base and getting things sort of fixed up a little bit. Why do I put so much time into the base? To be honest with you, at the beginning of the game, until you actually get up to a certain point, it's the most entertaining thing to do. There is a point when you've leveled it up that doing stuff outside the base actually kind of takes off and it becomes more entertaining to go kind of hunt things down, kill things, capture new pals. But right now we're still kind of in that early game, and using my Legos to build my fortress is the most entertaining part to me. Right now we're hunting down a life monk effigy. We are actually in this episode going to start branching out and doing a few other things to tick some checks off in the box. And one of those is to kind of counteract the harder catch rate, try to round up at least a couple life monk effigies. Like, we're not going to hunt down metric tons of them, but we're going to hunt down a few. And I'm also going to cut out a lot more of the junk this time around. Like, watch my Foxbark here just decide to teach the life monk a lesson for getting a little bit too close. And I figure it's a good opportunity to actually go ahead and add us a new creature into the pool. Let's see if it takes. Usually this is the point where I get screwed and he jumps out. Yeah, we got that one. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I have this really long record of having like 80% on the catch rate, and then it suddenly decided to break out at the very end. So, I don't know. It's beyond me. Another thing that I plan on trying to cut into it is anytime I pick up new travel points and whatnot, just to sort of give you an idea as to how far out I've explored. But I'm trying to kind of edit down a lot of the dead space in this episode just a bit more. One of my goals in this one is to actually try to level up by catching or rounding out some of our catches from other pals that we've already caught before, with Lamball being my #1 target. Gotta admit, there's something kind of feels merciless about taking an axe to a lamb's forehead, if it weren't for the fact that they killed me like 3 times when I was first starting out on this difficulty. Of course, Foxbark goes around and just goes on a Lamball genocide, then that doesn't help catch very much. You would think by now I would be in very much the habit that when I'm trying to catch stuff, of turning that guy into passive, but nah, I'm just letting him nuke everything around me. I actually end up doing this so much that at a certain point I start cutting it out. Yeah, nah, I really need to remember to switch them to passive whenever it's time to try to capture. But to be fair, whenever one significantly outlevels the creatures around it, it's kind of hard to let them give a hit or two and then pull them back. I don't really have a good enough weapon at the moment that my personal damage is high enough that it outpaces the PAL. And realistically, for a good chunk of it, that's just not going to be how it's going to be. Like, I know there's ways to construct the game so that your personal damage jumps way up. And I know for certain parts of the in-game activities, you really need some good legendary weapons that do some damage because you can't be reliant on your pals for all your damage. But I've not gotten there. Even on my main file, my pals still significantly outdamage me. Another thing I plan on leaving in is anytime I build a brand new structure. I do show a little bit of construction around the base in general, but anytime I'm actually just building a new structure, so stuff that goes towards completion of missions or upgrades for the base, I'll show that stuff as well. So I do believe that actually let us upgrade and increase our number of workers. Let's see. We're going to, at this point, because I haven't actually dropped the cap off in, throw in, I think I threw in an extra Kativa and the T-font. Can't remember. Well, whatever. Realistically, this early on, most of them aren't doing anything worthwhile anyway. Right now, trying to plan out exactly what I want to do to actually start constructing the stone pit and the logging site. Because now that I have them open and I actually have them unlocked in the tech tree, it's a good idea to get them and get them rolling, and then also to try to drop some pals in that will actually take advantage of them, because to be honest with you, when I first drop them down, I'll also include enough pals to actually really take advantage of it. Just doing a little bit of mining while Foxbark just decides to clean up the area around me. As always, he's very good at really going fast food on all the creatures in the remote area. So this, just in case I wasn't clear about how to do it, I wanted to include a little clip on this. If you want to have steps leading down that go all the way to the ground, but your surface just doesn't happen to be even with it, build a set of stairs, hop up on them, and then you can pretty easily position the cursor so that you can build a set that plunges down into the ground. Why do you do that? In order to make it easier for your pals that are down on the ground to get up to the areas that are elevated from the ground around it, because sometimes they'll get stuck on the geometry of the ground. So doing that just ensures that they're never going to be trapped in like a little pit down there. So at this point, we have enough materials to go ahead and drop down the tree farm, which is going to be useful for continuing to expand the base for now. At some point, we will switch primarily to stone, and then later on, maybe do glass. But for the time being, wood is going to be what the primary structure is made out of. All you really need to do if you have a primarily wooden base is be sure that if you have a fire pal assigned to do work, so in other words, one that's actually active, be sure you have a watering pal with them. That way if the fire pal accidentally catches your base on fire, you have something around to put it out. Alright, so what's going on here is I've decided, remember in I think the first episode, maybe in the second one, I mentioned that there was a section that things weren't quite matching up the way I wanted them to. So what I've done is deconstructed some of my mistaken pieces and grabbing a little bit of wood. What I'm really doing here is clearing out a node or two. I know I'm going to lose a little bit of resources by building over those nodes, but having that complete lower level is more important to me. And what I'm having to do right here is I'm having a hard time actually getting that one that I sunk into the ground selected in order to get rid of it. So realistically, for just a moment, I go ahead and take out this rock and then go back to trying to work on knocking that guy out of the way. Eventually, I figure out that if you're kind of hanging on the side of a cliff, a lot of the times that'll let you select stuff a little bit easier. Let's see if I show it right here. So you can kind of climb up, and if you position yourself just right, you can get down and actually get to where you're selecting the ones that you've sunk into the ground. What I would actually recommend is, for sake of being able to actually control where everything goes well in your base, don't sink it down like I did here. So for now, just go ahead and I jump up to try to throw a few other pieces down to get a little bit better idea of the orientation. And then I remember there's another piece right there. That one I managed to actually take out. So this is working for the time being. I'm running right along the edge. One of the problems with that is there's a little bit of natural decay in this. Whatever. All right, so this is up on that sort of secondary level. And I raised that area up just a little bit to make it easier to mesh up with stuff down on the ground. I think I'll flip around and show that here in a second. But I'm also trying to build out the area around the base of it to try to expand out as much as I physically can. What I usually do is lay down as many foundations as I can and then just sort of use the wooden roof ones to bridge the gap in the foundations whenever they absolutely won't do it. Yeah, it makes the grain not match up super well, but you can see right there what I did in the lower levels. Built some steps down, lowered that down to that point. And what I've done here is I've set up one set of stairs to try to lift this up so the first of the secondary levels will actually match up with the bottom of the house. So now we've jumped out a little bit to do some more lamb ball farming because you get a pretty massive XP bonus when you actually catch 12 of any one pal. It's actually one of the easiest ways in the game to level up early on. Once you hit that 12, get a decent little bonus. We're a little ways off from it. We've got 5 more to go, but that's not really that big of a challenge in the starting area. They actually were pretty generous in the starting area and constructed in a way where, as long as you're just a little bit patient, lamb ball, chickpea, and kativa are relatively easy to farm up to 12, with pingullet being just a little bit harder and foxpart being just a little bit harder, but they're not that bad. So now I deleted my original farm off and then relayed some foundations to move the farm up there. And at this point, we've got enough materials to actually go ahead and construct our stone pit. So trying to get everything locked together and lined up in a nice little pattern, and it's irritating me because it's not lining up the way I want it to. So flip that around, and there's just too big of a gap to satisfy me. Easiest thing to do whenever you don't really like the placement of everything. Pop it up and drop it down again. Don't be afraid to rearrange your layouts. One of the reasons why I wanted them just a touch closer is because then you can drop a chest down at the point where they basically meet. And then later on, whenever you actually get panels that are super efficient at actually farming on them, you can sort of stand on the border spot in between and grab all the materials out of them and drop them in your chest. And that's useful as long as you're at the base where you plan on doing your construction. If you're at another base, you want to do the grappling gun trick, which we start to work on the grappling gun towards the end of the video, but more or less you just build yourself up until you actually have, or grab items from around your base until your pack is full, and then just grappling gun over to a chest and drop everything off, because it pretty much ignores your weight when it comes to the movement you get for the grappling guns. Yeah, so this, you can just stand right on the border between the two, turn from one to the other, pick everything up, and then drop it down. This is one of the guys on our actually big PAL list. We need a Nightwing in order to have the PAL that we want to use as our flying mount to start with. Now, I can't build his saddle yet. I can't remember exactly what level I need to be. It's a couple... It's further ahead. It's like it's either 15 or 17, something along those lines. But if I go ahead and have him in my inventory, or not in the inventory, but in the PAL box, then when it does come time to actually make the saddle for him, he'll already be there. And I'll be able to see it right off the bat and know I need to pick it up from the tech tree. I only have one Megasphere, but I'm choosing to use it on him because it is essential to my plans to actually catch him. As soon as I get a higher than 50% rate, I just go ahead and pop it all out. We get lucky, it bumps up to 83, which still doesn't work half the time for me. But this time, it actually did. So now we have Nightwing, and that's another major PAL off of our list. We've unlocked the Crusher, so we're just going to go ahead and construct it for base progress, and also to have an easy source of PAL spheres. That's primarily what we'll be using stone for a long time, is to generate palladium fragments. Just trying to decide which way I want to line it up, because I don't really like the default way it lines up. That is best, and one of the tips whenever you're building stuff that your pals can work on is try to build it so both the front and the back are accessible. There's certain structures that for some reason, sometimes when they do updates or just various other reasons, the pals will actually approach them from the opposite side, so they'll approach them from the back rather than the front and work on them from those sides. So the easiest way to just be sure that your pals will always actually be able to work on them is to leave the front and the back both accessible. You know, you don't need to leave excess room behind stuff, but enough that anything you plan on using can get back there. We're ready for another PAL box upgrade, and this one will take just a little bit before we get to the next level. This is the first visitor we've had to the base, and he happens to be the dude that sells pals, which is not really all that useful, but he'll be a good practice one to see how hard it's going to be to catch them. Baseline sphere didn't really do anything with him, so let's hunt him down and try to give him CTE and see if that makes him more willing to go inside the PAL sphere. Now, sometimes when they're running away, they'll do what you see this guy doing here, which is, I guess, get concussed and then just stare at the wall for a little bit while you beat on them. They won't do this forever, but they can do it long enough for you to beat them down to the point where you at least stand a decent chance of catching them. Realistically, to catch the merchants, you usually need a little bit better catch rate than what you have at a baseline. Like, see, even beating him down that close, with the basic sphere, it's only 17%. I'd actually need quite a few more to really get him. So instead of continuing to waste my time, I just go ahead and start climbing up the wall to see if I can make it up to the fortress from this side. Not my smartest move. I should have known this was just a touch too high to go up without some decent handholds, but I was trying to be lazy, and so pay a little bit of a price. Either way, it's really not that hard to find a decent spot where I can climb up. We just go around and go towards the one dungeon that's actually really close to this base setup. And since I see him there, I decided to try to catch him one more time. But, nah, it's just not going to work out. He's too low. Or, not too low. My pal sphere level's too low. Might be doable with the green spheres, but the blue ones, they're just not going to catch him. Then once we get above green, catching humans becomes a lot more viable. They go based on groups of 10. So it's like 1 to 9 is supposed to be the blue ones. The green ones are 10 to 19, and it just keeps going up with that same pattern until you get to the point where you need the sort of beyond level cap spheres, like the exotic one and whatnot. And those are for the more specific patch update areas. So now we got 2 Kativas, 2 Lamballs, the Tansy, Life Monk, and the T-Font working at the base. More or less, my Kativas are acting as just a sort of generalized workhorse to transport stuff around. The Tansy is actually doing a bunch of different tasks, including cutting down trees. And the Lamballs are just producing wool so that I have a whole bunch of early cloth available. Getting one step closer. 3 more Lamballs, and then we'll finally have that 12. Look, the way I play this game, more or less what happens is ADD takes over, and I just switch from task to task to task to task. Fortunately, the way this game is structured, you don't really get punished for that. I'm sure it would be way more efficient if I would just go back to the base, farm up a ton of PAL spheres, come back, capture a bunch of the baseline PALs. That way my level would jump up relatively quickly. And then I could progress my way through the tech tree to get to the point where I want to be with some more advanced PALs. But I like doing a little bit of a mixture of everything. And that's one of the beautiful things about this game. You can entertain yourself really easily just by jumping around and doing whatever task takes you at that moment in time. Alright, 1 more Lamball, and we should be good on the Lamballs as far as leveling them goes, or not leveling, but as far as the baseline catch goes. I'm sure at some point, if we really feel like we want to boost the efficiency of our wool production, we'll catch enough to condense them down and get them up to like 4 stars, because that is one thing that condensing actually helps improve, is whatever their partner skill is, it boosts it up quite a bit. But they're not worth spending cakes on. Now, I don't know why, but I have a lot of trouble trying to catch this guy. Creamy, I really just want to catch them. I don't actually want to use them. They're not all that good. I got lucky there and got a level up from accidentally killing it. It seems like every time I go to catch them, I just can't succeed. They either keep breaking out of the balls, or they die way too easily. Got us a ball. We're going to go ahead and try to catch us another Kativa. Whoop. And he's dead. Okay, see, this is a point where sometimes you just need to know when to abandon ship. And we have activated a boss that will stomp us into the ground. This is one of those points where I'm really feeling my lack of stamina, because that guy right there, he will one-shot me if he catches up to me. So what we're going to do, we're not kiting him past that thing to try to get it to fight him. We're just going down here and hitting any teleport point that we can get to try to drop hate, and then we teleport it onto the base. So we're picking up the primitive furnace because that's one of the things that we need to advance towards our ultimate goal of a breeding farm, because the primitive furnace is going to let us actually make baseline ingots, which are necessary for a metric ton of recipes. We're also going to, after a long pause, pick up the feathered hairband and make that as our first helmet item. And now I'm starting to remember, we've left that boss over there. I haven't touched him yet. We could probably use an ancient technology point, if nothing else, to grab a feed bag and then a grappling gun later on. Or do the grappling gun, then the feed bag. Not sure. But either way, we need to start going through and killing whatever bosses we can actually manage. What I'm doing at this point is kind of looking through my list, seeing what things I've seen that I want, which ones I've actually captured, and trying to sort of start getting a plan of attack together. Like, I'd like to get a ping gullet to have something to cool things off. Don't really care about hooker teas, don't really care about depresso or creamy. I'll get them eventually. Celery, on the other hand, I want a celery. And I need an eichler. There's a couple other creatures that we need that we haven't gotten yet. Tombat would be one to grab, but we put him off for a little while because he's kind of hard to find and he primarily pops up at night. And right now, a lot of the stuff that pops up at night is just not stuff I want to deal with. Once we've got a pretty solid team together, doing the nighttime stuff's not that bad. Basically, I dropped another 3 or 4 hours into playing around with the base. And what you're seeing here, little glimpses of it. I never do pause to take a good, clear look at the overall base behind me. But what you saw when I was turning around is that I have looped around and more or less done the outline for my second floor. That was just to illustrate that the whole reason why I put those cross sections into the bottom is because then you don't necessarily have to have supports all over the place in order to actually do a loop around the base. Like, see, I've got an upper perimeter going around, and if you can do the perimeter, you can fill in all the spaces in between. Like, it's really uncommon to end out with a situation where you can actually do a loop around like that and then not cover everything in the middle. But that is done because I've set up the foundations on the bottom to actually basically give a nice little cross section across the whole base. And that will enable us to build without doing tons and tons of supports. If you've been wondering how people build without having to do tons of pillars or do other stuff like that, you just need some foundations in a pattern underneath what you're planning on building up with, and you're good to go. Walls and stuff can kind of be used as supports, but it seems like it's a little inconsistent with when it does decide to count walls and when it doesn't. Right here, I've got these guys slaving away to make a whole bunch of cloth to be able to use for producing armor in just a little bit. But those guys were also constructing the Palgear workbench in a slightly different spot than we had it before. That positioning bothered me. Keep that in mind. All right, back out into the world, gather another life monk effigy, and then take a look around and figure out where we want to jump to. I remember that there is a marker down there. Believe it or not, 90% of the time I forget that there's actually a compass up top, and I forget that that will point me towards new structures that are relatively nearby. What you can actually do is if you look, you see that it is pointing me towards a waypoint. And it shows the waypoints if you're near them, whether you've activated them or not. The particular route that I went, let me pick up this little tablet. But the important thing is grabbing this waypoint, because this waypoint is the easy way to access the Ping King fight. And the Ping King area is one of the easiest places to go to farm up frozen organs, at least once you're high enough level, because he starts out with 2 ping gullets with him, I think, and they're not terribly hard to kill. He's not terribly hard to kill if it weren't for the group of them, because as soon as you draw his aggro, they'll start launching ice balls at you. And right now my guy takes hits as if he's just wearing paper. So while my pals hold up decently well, he doesn't. So we dropped our Statue of Power. Now we're going to start spinning some of our effigies. Turned into only spinning one of our effigies. At this point, I'm starting to ask myself, why do I have a lamb ball and a chickpea in my party? And the only answer to that is there's no reason really not to at this moment. I don't feel the need to carry anything else around with me. And sort of taking a look at this and trying to decide whether there's any value in going ahead and throwing some all pal soul on some of those guys. Fox Spark is a good early cooker, but realistically, none of your starting workers are worth throwing souls at unless you just really like them and plan on keeping them in your base forever, which, just to throw this out there is no reason why you have to replace a pal that you genuinely like. As you're progressing through the game, you may want to, just because they're going to sort of cap off your production rate. By the way, this is me just moving my construction area to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. There's no real reason to have to move it from over there, but this doesn't just let me have access to it, it makes it accessible by my pals, so I can line them up a little bit better over here. Anyway, towards the end game, you can actually get manuals that will let you teach your pals and upgrade the skills that they have. So if there's a pal that you really, really enjoy having in your base, you just like that pal, keep it in your base, or at the very least, towards end game, you can kind of farm up those manuals and train it up to the point where it has a level 4 or level 5 skill and whatever you want to have it doing. If you just enjoy having that pal, have it. Keep it out. Play with the things that you like to play with. We grab another fox spark just to build up our army a little bit and have one that we can leave at the base rather than keeping the one that we have exclusively in the party. And this is the point where I decide, you know what, let's go up here and take a peek at this and see how hard it's going to be to take down what is probably the easiest enemy base in the game. And as soon as I see that my daydream eradicates them, it's like, oh, okay, cool, we can have some fun here. For some reason, it decides to just let that one guy run past and start coming after me. But it pretty quickly backtracks to take him out and teach him a lesson about messing with its boss. He does seem single-mindedly focused on me though, so I decide to see if we can enact Palworld slavery, and the answer's no. So we just do an execution. But the cool thing about the base is you can get some free pals out of the cages. You come by, take a peek, see what they got in there. After, I think it's like an hour, they'll respawn and refill the base, and you'll have new stuff in it. And there's usually a chest somewhere decently nearby, but all those guys also drop materials that you can use. Like, yeah, at the moment, you probably don't have a whole lot of use for ammo, but potato seeds and a few other random items are some pretty good things that they drop as well. Let's see if we can finally manage to catch a creamy. And not yet. Let's teach it a lesson about saying no. That is that it dies if it tries to. Yeah, the curse continues with Creamy. It's probably going to die if it pops out. Yep. This is one of the problems with the Daydream Collar. They will eradicate a whole bunch of things around you and makes it very difficult to actually catch the stuff that you want to catch. Decide at the last minute to try to catch that guy as well, but didn't work out. We did get one pin gullet though. That's another convenient one to have. And he eradicates it. Let's see if he erases that one too. Yep. See, now you can actually tell him to go passive, which is really what I should have done. But, I don't know. It just didn't occur to me. Didn't seem all that necessary at the moment. And try to catch it and hope that he doesn't murder it. We got that one. Do we get another one? Ah, 2 in a row. That's kind of lucky. Huh. I must have edited in these clips out of order, so I went back to show you me making the Daydream necklace. Alright, let's build us a fire pit. That way we can make a few, oh wait, that's right, I didn't have the necklace, he was just out with me. Yeah, sorry, I was getting a little ahead of myself earlier when I thought I had him passively out. No, I actually had him actively summoned, and just now I'm going to turn him into a passive. That means I can have him and a different one out, which is useful for other encounters. Not so much useful here. So as soon as that gets constructed, I immediately set it up to start building ingots. Ingots are one of those things that they never really run out of use. You kind of want to be generating as many of them as you can later on. We build a 3-shot bow, so now we have a much better weapon that is also decently better at bigger targets. I was trying to hit him so he'd actually turn around and fight, but as you can tell, my marksmanship is not that great. I think the range is kind of limited by the bottom arrow. In other words, if the bottom one hits anything, it just sort of stops all of them. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. But we need us a good electric pal so that whenever we do actually start needing electricity, we have one around just in case we don't have any of the better ones. There's a lot better electric pals than Sparkit, but he's one of the easiest and earliest ones you can get. Also enables you to get a few electric organs, which are super useful early on because they're not that easy to get. Alright, let's try to catch us another Pingullet if we don't end out just straight up murking it. There we go. 2 of them. And we can't finish out the 30 pal mission. Grab us another life monk effigy. And let's see where we go from here. Magically teleport to the forest. Now, at this point, this is right near the small settlement, as you can see now. The small settlement is a really handy place to go to. It's pretty close to your base in the early game, so we'll jump down. The reason why it's useful is this guy. The main thing you will spend your money on early are the organs, probably. Maybe some leather or bone to sort of cap out what you need to build stuff. I'm going to use it to get some wheat seeds here in just a little bit. That way I can actually build my first wheat plantation. But then late game, once you actually have the ability to get those organs and stuff relatively easily or to generate gold really easily, you can use him to buy the majority of the ingredients you need to make cakes so that you don't have to farm them. Then you can just dedicate your farms to actually making honey, which makes the whole cake baking process significantly easier. And there are some really, really easy gold farms in late game. Alright, so let's take out Chillet and actually take out our first boss. Now, he's going down a lot faster than I thought he would. I kind of figured he would actually be a little bit more of a challenge, even though my pals are only level 12. As you can see, I'm not exactly throwing a whole bunch of DPS at him myself. My pals are really taking it to him. Realistically, if I want a realistic shot of catching him, I would need a green pal sphere. Try a couple times. Eventually, I will get him, but not this time around. My guys will just sort of take him out before I have a chance to actually catch him. However, since he's right next to where my base is, it's just a matter of time. Eventually, I'll get lucky enough to get him. But he drops some ancient civilization parts and leather and gives us the ability to actually unlock a piece of ancient technology. But we also noticed that right over here is another Nightwing sleeping. It's always good to catch more than one of any pal, not just for the extra experience of having caught 12 of them, but because when you do actually open up the breeding farm, the best way to guarantee that you get one of what you want is to breed two, like a male and a female of that species together. It's also useful to have both a male and a female of any particular species in case you need them to make something else. Because you never know what you're going to have as your matching partner for whatever you're trying to breed towards. And given some of the stuff that we're going to try to get later on, a lot of it at the beginning, we're just going to make them because even without optimized passives and whatnot, they're really good. Like Anubis is excellent to have as a base worker early on because he's super fast at construction. So anytime you go to make stuff, he will supremely accelerate it. You could also go for Splatterina if you prefer her, but he's pretty easy to make. Celery and I can't remember the other one that makes him, but it's two very, very early on pals. And then you can actually use him to make a few other stronger pals. So having him around will just be super, super useful. But we're getting a little bit closer there. We're actually starting to really focus in on catching, if you haven't noticed. Hopefully a little bit more action than the first time around. And boom, 2 more Kataivas. Slowly building up our palbox army. Chickpeas, useful for eggs, relatively easy to catch. Alright, I guess in the next episode, since it's primarily going to be going out and trying to catch stuff, we're at the point where we're sort of going to transition away from base construction for a little bit. It's just going to more or less be rounding out the base and adding things in because there's no reason to build it up too much. We'll switch over to just picking up some generalized conversation topics. But for now, you can just listen to me mindlessly ramble about this stuff. Hopefully I'm helping you get a good nap. I know my voice tends to have that soporific effect. ASMR just seems too weird for me to record. Not going to be doing that anytime soon. Okay, this is a good early base structure. The spas, you really want to construct them all over the place. I will probably drop another one down as soon as I feel like I have the extra moment to grab the extra materials, and I tend to grab the newer versions of them as soon as I can. They go a long way towards helping keep your sanity up until the point where you can get a shroomer. This is just me dropping down another berry plantation because for some reason the base progress requires you have 2 of them. Realistically, you can build tons of plantations or you can get tons of berries from just one. The easiest thing to do would be to actually stack up the plantations, but I decided for this run that would be considered cheating, so we're not gonna do that. All right, since we're over 30 minutes, that's going to call it for this episode. Next episode, we'll focus in on trying to achieve a couple more direct goals. We'll go out and actually try to get some of our pals and flesh out the lay of the land a little bit and see if we can't get up to the point of having a flyer. Anyway, remember everyone, if I can beat it, so can you. Good night.